Well, I am very glad to welcome all of you also, and I am excited to share A Whisper from Eternity by Paramhansa Yogananda. This is my lost music sprang from the heart of everything. I heard sweet, enchanted music playing faintly beneath the sounds of my outer life, as if coming from forgotten dreams. Stilly, I listened, and the music grew more and more subtle, poignant, and sweet, drawing me inward until I could hear it no longer with my earthly ears. Patiently I waited, striving to think whether I'd ever heard earthly music like the divine nuances of these new melodies. No. In my rich storehouse of memory, I found no likeness to those enchanting sounds that had come and gone in my consciousness like phantoms of idle reflection. Had I really heard that music, or had I only imagined its sweet harmony? Was it the exquisite expression of my subtle, highest aspirations? Or was it only the sound of harmonious whispers of passing fancy? I waited. Deeply, inwardly, I listened. I entered through the portals of my subtle senses and walked in the garden of my dreams of eternity. At last, I saw dancing in those dreams shining waves and bouncing wavelets of craving through countless earthly incarnations. Then I heard, coming faintly over the water, strains of many wondrous melodies. None, however, were like those soul recollections which I had heard before and lost. Suddenly, in deepest silence, those ancient sounds returned, swelling up from beneath hidden memories of my soul. And then that music engulfed in one huge billow all my waves and ripples of past craving, all delights and sorrows, all victories and failures, all expectations and disappointments of a myriad past lives. I needed no other sounds, no other vibrations of earthly fulfillment to satisfy my heart. Then it was that the lost music of my soul resounded at the heart of everything, pulsing from the very heart of all my private dreams. Ear hath never heard, thought hath never conceived, love hath never trembled with, dream hath never visualized, tongue hath never told, nor can any ever describe that long last, long forgotten, but yet anciently remembered music. Behind the curtains of life's ceaseless play, I found again, playing on harp strings of all deep feeling, the lost but now found beloved music of my soul. Maybe we should just start with the Festival of Light. This is a common experience to all of us. The memory that the intuition gives us, that this drama, this duality, this ego, even these thoughts, this intellect, are not the basis of reality. The basis of reality, as Master says here, is the song of the soul that we remember and yet we block out. Swami Kriyananda would never give a talk with his shining intellect before we had music. We would always have a song, and then he would give a talk. I'm not going to attack the intellect. I'm a friend and a student of Swami Kriyananda, author of 160 books on Paramhansa Yogananda's teachings. Paramhansa Yogananda is up there with the most prolific writers in the history of Hinduism. I guess the only ones I can think of are maybe Vivekananda and a couple of others, but Master wrote a lot. He gave us a lot for the intellect. We need the intellect. We can use the intellect. We don't want to toss it out. Maria read this little, the last part of the reading from the Gita, Bhagavad Gita, Song of God. So we have the song. It's a scripture, true. But in here, Krishna says, grasping it with your mind and perceiving it by intuitive realization, you shall escape the evils of delusion. So we've got the players. The bad guy is Maya, delusion. The star of the show is intuition, and the neutral factor is the intellect. It's going to go good or bad. So I'll tell you a story from the year 333. You may have missed it on the Google News, but 333, St. Anthony of the desert was out in his cave. And the church fathers, not the church mothers so much, would have helped a lot if they had the church mothers in there, but mostly the church fathers. They were having a tiff, mental tiff. There was this theory called the Arian heresy. Jesus wasn't God, Jesus was a man. And half the bishops thought, yeah, that makes sense. They thought about it and they argued about it and they had long drawn out theories and they wrote essays about it and all this stuff. And then the other half were saying, no, Jesus is God. He's the Son of God. He said he was the Son of God. We should probably listen to him. So they got into a big tiff, and the church wasn't real, the Pope wasn't really strong, so it wasn't that they could, ask the chief. So they were arguing, and it was getting very, very divisive, which is what the intellect likes to do. We just read that. It likes to divide everything and rearrange everything. So they were into a big problem. So they recognized that St. Anthony had defeated delusion, had overcome Maya. And I won't go into that, but Yogananda tells the story of St. Anthony. He had all these visions of evil and darkness, and he had to beat them one by one, and he was praying to Christ, and he didn't seem like Christ was coming. He was suffering, and he was confused and tortured. And then finally, Jesus appeared to him. And Anthony said, "Gee, Lord, why didn't you come?" And Christ said, "Anthony, I was just the same with you." And Anthony knew. So the church had in its collective consciousness that Anthony had overcome Maya, and they needed him. So they sent a mission out to find him. Now, St. Anthony was 90 years old at this time, and he had kept going further out into the desert to be away from mankind and to be in communion, in samadhi with Christ, his guru. So first they had to find him, and that wasn't easy. Apparently no one had seen him in 10 years, or maybe more. So they asked around where to go. This is in Egypt. This is way, way south of Cairo. This is like maybe 100 miles south of Cairo. And the conference of the priests was in Alexandria, which is north on the coast of the Mediterranean. So they said, the Pope at the time said, find Anthony and bring him, because everyone respects his intuitive perception of Christ. He'll know. So long story short, we only have a little time here, so we're speeding it up, but they found him. And he was way out in the desert. They find him, and they go to him, and so Anthony's there. He's in a high state of bliss, and they're trying to explain to him that half the bishops think that Jesus was a man, and half think he was God. Anthony looks at him and he says, "Haven't they seen him?" Okay, this is the right guy to ask, right? So they try to explain it to him. Now, Anthony had already had a vision of an altar about out where he was by the spring in the desert. And the donkeys came and they started knocking over the altar and flipping over the candles. And just, so when they tried to explain this to St. Anthony, he said, the young man tried to explain to him, he said, no, wait, that's okay. The donkeys are trying to tip over the altar. I get it, let's go. So they start the 200-mile journey, 90-year-old man on a donkey cart, and they go to Alexandria. The assembly is there with all the bishops. St. Anthony comes, and they all, just vibrationally, and this so much reminded me of our time with Kriyananda in the body, is when Kriyananda was somewhere, you were like, I got it, okay. It's the Kriyananda vibration, it's here. I could tell when he came into this country from Italy or from India, Swami's here, yeah, he's here, he's got it. So Anthony comes, and there's a big gathering, hundreds of bishops, and Anthony walks up and he says, I have seen him. Turns around, walks out. Done. Those of you who have to attend meetings regularly, isn't that like heaven? Okay, we're done. But it was the intuitive vibration that Anthony said those 4 words with that everyone recognized. We've been drawn into the Maya. Our intellects have these elaborate papers we've written about God. No, Jesus was just a man. Anthony says, I've seen him. It's 330, the year 330. It's 300 years since Jesus left the body. He's seen him. Therefore, Jesus is a spirit. Jesus is the Son of God. And that intuition is what Kriyananda always emphasized from us. Why did we have to start every talk with a song? Because the vibration of the music of the soul is our inner awareness of the presence and the reality of God within us. Kriyananda often said, the saints are the true custodians of religion because they have the experience. They don't have a long-winded theory. I don't know about you, and this shouldn't be taken as a put down on philosophers and colleges, but when I was in college, I would just go so dry reading these guys. I just couldn't, it was, what is missing here? And I realized joy. There's no joy. I bow to Aristotle, Plato, all the rest of them. There's no joy. For me, for someone else maybe, but there was no joy. When I read Yogananda, when I read Ramakrishna, when I read the masters, when you read the Buddha, there's a sense of inner joy. That is the intuition's power of the soul to know God. That is the joy, the inner joy. And that is what we need. We need the songs of the soul. I'm going to tell you a story that's much more recent than 330. We're all the way up to 1959. I'm 7 years old. I go to a Catholic grammar school in San Francisco, downtown San Francisco. It is called Our Lady of Victory Grammar School. In French, Notre Dame de Victoire. So I go to a French grammar school, and in the entry to our school, there's a statue of Mary. It's really big. It's like 5 feet tall. And it's Mary, Our Lady of Victory. So on May 1st, we have May Day. May Day, in the real world, is the month to honor Mary. Communists made it the day for the workers. But it's really a day to honor Mary because May is Mary's month. Anyway, May 1st, 1959, I'm 7 years old, I'm in 2nd grade. The kids in our school go out into the schoolyard. There's 500 children on a concrete playground, schoolyard, and they bring the statue of Mary down there into the schoolyard, and they put it up on a table. And I'm 7, and I'm not quite putting it all together. You know, like, so what are we doing here? there's a school with 400 kids, and then there's a high school with a girls' high school, also part of this school, but just girls. So one of the girls gets to go up to the statue and put a garland on it. And that's pretty cool. So all of us, 500 kids, suffer not the little children, come unto me, for such is the kingdom of God. We're all singing to Mary, and we're singing songs. And it's good. It's great. It's great. But in my mind, my 7-year-old intellect is like, what's up? What's going on? Are we putting it's a statue. What's with the flowers? Anyway, I'm standing there, and because I'm only in 2nd grade, and there's 8th graders and high school girls, so I'm just in this sea of people. And I'm looking at Mary and we're singing. And suddenly, Divine Mother lifts the veil. And it's not a statue of Mary. The Divine Mother is in the entire schoolyard. And she goes all the way up to the 3rd story of the buildings. And she's there everywhere. And I look around, and a light bulb goes on. This is what we're doing. And I'm standing next to a nun. Now, she is wearing a black veil, as all nuns did in the 50s. And she had a little white thing on, and you could just see her face. You can't see, this is it. This is all you see. And I'm standing there, and I look up at Sister, and she is singing. And her eyes are closed, and she's singing to the Mother. And I get it. This is why ladies become nuns, is because it's the joy of the Mother. They're serving the Mother. Mother says, teach these kids how to read and write and do mathematics and learn French and English and whatever. And it's 66 years ago, and I remember it perfectly. I just looked up at her, and she was just in joy. She was in bliss, and she was singing with the kids. Interesting, though, 450 kids, 8 nuns are totally in charge of that. No security. Of course, Divine Mother's running it, but we're there. When they say pray, we pray. When they say sit, we sit. When they say stand, we stand. When they say bow, we bow. 450 kids. I'm going to make Joy and Jaya have a fit. Anyway, so this nun, and I understood renunciation. I understood love for the Divine Mother. I understood. Now, it wasn't the first time I met a nun. My aunt was a nun. I had nuns all the time, and priests and brothers. But it just clicked. Intuitively, I understand this is what we're doing. And this is why we sing to Mary, the Mother, Divine Mother. And she was big. She was the whole schoolyard. There was no the little statue was just in light. It was all. And it went all the way up to the top. And all the kids were in it. I never really asked the other kids if they had that same experience, because I knew intuitively that this is our relationship with Mother, with the Divine Mother. So we have that intuition. It's available. We do need the teachings. We do need Swami Kriyananda's books. We do need the revelation of Christ. We do need the essence of the Bhagavad Gita. We need all the books that Swami wrote and all that Master wrote, so that we can put our minds around being receptive to Divine Mother's love. But what we really need is the song of God and the love of God. And that's really what's going to make it go for us. I'm going to tell you another story. This one has a happy an ending. So I was looking at YouTube last week, and on YouTube you can find Yogananda, Babaji, and Buddha, and Christ, and Sunday services. I saw Jitendra on there last week. But there was a YouTube, and it was 10 reasons why Jesus never existed. And now this is not, he's not God or the Son. This is, he never existed. It's all a myth. There was never a man named Jesus. He was never born. I looked at it and I thought, wow, this is interesting. So I looked at the first part of it. I couldn't take more than the first part of it because it was so silly, but it was interesting because he was using the Gospels to argue that Jesus never existed. And I bow to Maya. Haridas and I used to agree that we need a healthy respect for Maya. I mean, wow. So what he was reasoning was, since the 4 Gospels, Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John, don't describe the birth of Christ the same, it never happened. Now, for those of you who know, Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John didn't meet Christ until he was 30. So it's secondhand information what would happen at the birth. Anyway, needless to say, there was no joy in it. But I thought how Maya does this to us. He thought that he was helping people. He was going to, because he discovered this new thing. Jesus never existed, and he was going to share it with people. That's what Maya does. It takes the intellect and it twists it around, just they did in the time of St. Anthony. Jesus was a man. Well, he healed Lazarus. He rose from the dead. He appeared to the disciples. He put his finger in Thomas's hand. Come on, man. Get with it. But the intellect does it. It tricks us. So we have to be cautious of that. And we have to use the heart, the feeling of the heart. We have to use the song, the joy. So what if we aren't feeling intuition? Sing in the meadows and everywhere. Sing out a blessing to everyone. Sing. Sing the songs of Kriyananda. Sing the chants. Sing to God. Practice meditation with joy. The intuitive feeling of the heart. When you read the autobiography, if you are lucky enough or have good enough karma, it makes sense. I met a man when I was in college, and we were talking about the autobiography, and he said, I read that. That was the stupidest book I ever read in my life. And I went, oh no. That was the best book I ever read in my life. So we agree to disagree. But that's the nature of the intellect. It can support consciousness, which is why Swami wrote all those books. And Master wrote all those books. And the saints, Beta Vyasa wrote the Mahabharata, because the intellect can be brought in support of the divine, and it can be brought into the support of confusion. What is the direction that it takes? It's up to you. If it's going to here, there's a feeling of joy. And we can use our intellect. Swamiji loved to have philosophical discussions. He was so, of course, he was like one of the smartest people on the planet, so there was very few people. But he loved to talk philosophy because it was philosophy directed to the divine consciousness. We're good. Philosophy directed to confusion of the lower reaches, we're not good. So practice. If your meditations, if you're not feeling, read Whispers from Eternity. Eternally through it I will talk to you, said Paramhansa Yogananda. And feel that beauty. In the poem Samadhi, Master says, the storm of Maya stilled by magic wand of intuition deep. The magic wand of intuition, that's what we need. Not by the algorithm, not by the theory, by magic wand of intuition deep. Magic wand, whew, Maya's gone. God bless you all.
The secret of laughter lies in the laughing, not in the search for joy. It's a swallow winging on the wing, its innocence in a boy. Luru-luru-lero, luru-luru-lie. Joy will come to anyone whose heart has learned to fly. If you think that laughter lies in things, to things you'll be but a slave. Joy will come to anyone whose heart has learned to fly. Joy will come to anyone whose heart has learned to fly. Joy in the giving, not in the gaining. Grasp and you'll never sing. You could win the world and still be poor. Win peace and live like a king. Joy will come to anyone whose heart has learned to fly. Joy will come to anyone whose heart has learned to fly. Sing when the sun shines, sing when the rain falls, sing when your road seems strange. In a tempest seize the lightning flash and ride the winds of change.